Hi, and welcome to Curiosity, Not Judgment. My name is Birka.
And I'm Gary.
So, we wanted to start off by saying thank you to those of you that have taken the time to reach out and correspond with us through the various means and channels. And we had one comment we wanted to just share because it really spurred some conversation. So, we had a viewer, listener in the UK just send a note of thanks and gratitude for being challenged to think a little bit differently, and went on to say they looked forward to seeing some more of our content. And so when I replied to ask a little bit more about where they're located, the response was, "Your videos popped up in my recommendations, and I've never been more grateful for an algorithm." And I thought that was very interesting. And so we started talking about algorithms and the times when they're actually beneficial. And in this case, we are very thankful. So we've got a new listener in the UK because of it.
That's great. And algorithms are, there's a lot of controversy around algorithms because algorithms determine what we see in our feeds and social media and apparently in podcasts. I'm not sure I was aware of that because I've always just searched for a podcast on a recommendation from a friend or whatever, right?
In this case, this is the YouTube channel. So somebody saw our content pop up on that right-hand side, the recommended for you videos, and
Interesting.
enjoyed it. So I'm thankful for that.
So algorithms are, in this case, a good thing. For me, I think they're a good thing in that I am sure that I get content or marketed to on my Instagram or Facebook or whatever I'm on, Twitter, based on what I have viewed before and what I've liked and where I spend my time. And I know there's some people that think that that's a privacy issue.
Sure.
And others that think that that's a terrible thing, that they shouldn't be profiled and all of that. But, for me, I'd rather look at things that tend to be consistent with where I've been and what I'm doing than things that are from left field. Now, of course, we've had a lot of discussion lately about algorithms and what you see on social media sites like Twitter. One of the reasons Elon Musk bought Twitter was because he claimed he didn't like the algorithms and what he was being shown. So, what are algorithms? How do they work? And are they a good thing or a bad thing?
Ooh, well, you're looking at the wrong person to explain what they are and how they work. That's a you question.
Well, I mean, I know just enough to be dangerous about how they work, but basically, and I have a grandson who literally, when he was in college, said that he switched his major from astrophysics to computer science because he said, I want to go work on those algorithms at Google and Twitter and make sure that they're fair and honest. And I thought, that's an interesting comment. What is fair and honest to you?
Yeah.
And we had a great conversation after that, by the way, which I won't share completely here. But in whose view is something fair and honest, and whose view is an algorithm worthwhile? There's a lot in the news today about AI.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And about how AI actually thinks faster than we do. And so AI will always win in an argument because it doesn't have to process. It just goes based on its algorithms. Again, that word.
Yeah.
Anyway, in its basic terms, an algorithm is just going to take what you're doing currently on a given site or a given activity and feed you more stuff based on that. That's the simplest terms. Go ahead.
Well, we've talked about this in the negative sense that when you have a political viewpoint or you have a stance socially, if you look at sites that espouse that particular language and value, you're going to continue to be fed further and further articles or videos that support that way of thinking. And so on the negative side, it's really easy to get trapped in I'm going to call it a community. It's probably not the right word, but in a community
Echo chamber.
Much better word, an echo chamber of like-minded thinkers, because the computer is determining, or the algorithm is determining, this is content it believes that you want to see, and it would be extremely difficult for you to find a counter narrative unless you go searching out for it, because the algorithm wants to keep you in that space, your eyes locked on a screen, engaged in whatever platform that you're in, And so it has no intention of getting you mad so that you get up and walk away.
So this algorithm that our fan here found or experienced is an interesting counter to that, because if you're out there searching for sites that aren't one way or the other, or that espouse that we need more curiosity, not judgment in our case, then that would be a good thing,
Sure,
right?
certainly.
And that would be a positive thing, and you would think that that would be a good thing. It's interesting, though, you're right, in that if you have you don't want to just have an echo chamber. I think having data to support what you're currently thinking is good. So, okay, I'm starting to think that this might be a good stance to take. What data can I find to support that?
Right.
Would be great. What would be in an ideal world for me is also if somebody were to say, now, by the way, you're getting a bunch of stuff that supports this viewpoint. Here's a counter one that's well thought out, and that has data that would bring you to a different conclusion, or at least a more complete conclusion where you've gone right now. What you don't, I mean, the true form of prejudice is contempt before investigation. So in other words, how much investigation are you actually doing as you come to a conclusion? Are you just looking for things that support your current viewpoint, which is always a bad thing?
Sure.
I just made a judgment,
Well,
which is usually a bad thing and is probably not the most productive thing you can do.
right.
What I love is the people that go around interviewing people, and this can happen on both sides, so this
Sure.
is apolitical, where somebody will come and they'll say, okay, do you support X and X? Yes. Do you support their position on this, their position on this, and this? Yes, yes, yes. Well, their positions are exactly the opposite, but they just say that because they support the person without really thinking about the positions that they take. And so, those are the kind of things that I think we can sometimes get stuck in.
Yeah.
So in a real ideal world, an algorithm would show you things that support with data what you're trying to start to conclude, but then would also give you some counter data to say, have you considered this? I'm not sure those algorithms exist.
Yeah, I'm not sure they do either, but kudos to your grandson who's thinking ahead towards wanting to make the world a better, safer, more equitable place by contributing to the construct of the algorithm. And so, yeah, put in a good word from me about, yeah, we want to see a healthy counterpoint demonstrated in some of these echo chambers.
It's also a good example of, to me, for youthful idealism and wishful thinking,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm a little more cynical, thinking that whoever creates those algorithms are the people who are controlling what I see.
Sure.
And I'm not sure I want anybody controlling what I see.
No, you don't. And at the same time, I think we have all experienced the frustration of, you're going to get advertisements in front of you. And so do you want to see something that corresponds with your lifestyle, or do you want to be, inundated with ads that have nothing to do with you whatsoever? And so I don't know. Maybe that's not a good offset to the rationalization behind the algorithms, but I think we are most comfortable as human beings seeing and viewing things that make sense to us and make sense in our world. And so when you have the interruption of advertisements that have nothing to do with the way in which you live, it is kind of an abrupt interruption in the flow of information that you're receiving. And so I guess, points could be argued on either side.
Well, but you know me, I like to sometimes break down the problem into different parts to try to simplify. If we categorize between advertisements and viewpoints, now, do I want algorithms in my life with respect to advertising? Yes. I don't want to see things that I don't need or want.
But is the viewpoint, the article, the commentary, actually an advertisement in and of itself? Because I think that's the case, right?
Good point.
I mean, you've got, maybe if you're at a major news hub, the supplemental materials that you are being fed, I would imagine, are paying somebody to get that content in front of your eyes. So it is an advertisement.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it. I was being a little idealistic myself there in thinking that viewpoints in news are still objective and that no one's paying to put it in front of me.
Gary.
That's funny. Whereas an advertisement, I accept the fact that someone's putting it in front of me. No, you're right. So certain news organizations and certain viewpoints would be, because we all hear about clicks, right? And clicks are
Absolutely.
the ever important thing for even news organizations and folks who are touting certain viewpoints. There's been a big blurring of what I call the Walter Cronkite news, which was just the facts, man. Like the guy Friday on what was a Dragnet. There was an old TV show called Dragnet, and there was two detectives, and Friday was just the facts, ma'am. And I equate that with a guy named Walter Cronkite, who used to be one of the big newscasters, who is seen as kind of the last guy in America who was really impartial with
Right.
respect to
Unbiased
reporting
news.
the news, unbiased news. Now you can't tell whether something's an opinion piece or a news story
Right.
on both sides. I mean,
Yeah.
that's an apolitical statement also. You've got one network that is seen as more conservative, one is seen as more left, and I think most people would agree that that's true. And that gives us yet another thing we can hate, right? And so I don't watch that news. It's funny because what I do, I have a little thing on my little what do you call those things? Speakers these days?
Oh, like a
Google,
home.
Amazon, whatever.
Yeah.
And when I say good morning, it says good morning, Gary, and then it says, used to say good morning, sir, and then I thought that was too formal. Anyway, and then it gives me different viewpoints. So I listen to BBC and then NPR, and then anyway, I won't go through all of them because I might get labeled. But I listen to different ones just to see, and for some of that is just out of curiosity as to how they would say the same news story with a different slant. But some of it is because I really do want to hear what different people are thinking about different things. BBC is hilarious. They're very into sports and very into personalities, right? And so and they've got this thing called the BBC Minute. And it'll start off with some earth-shattering world news, but then it'll go to somebody who's popular and trending, and then some sports stories. They always have a sports story, and so it's kind of funny they click all that into 1 minute. But I think it's important that we listen to different sources and get out of our own echo chambers from time to time. So algorithms can be good or bad, just like anything in life. Anything has a good use and a bad use.
Yeah, agreed.
So a good use for me is an algorithm that tells me what gives me advertisements more along the things that I like and want to purchase anyway, right? Because I want to buy, I just don't want to be sold. I don't want to be sold something I don't want or need, and that I think algorithms help with that. I really do believe that. On the other side, algorithms can be used badly if I only see certain information, or if good information is trying to come to me and it's being blocked by people who don't want me to see it for an agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to be maybe a little more vulnerable than I should be, but so I'm 45 and I'm getting into the age bracket of premenopausal women. And oh my goodness, the things that get in front of my face these
See,
days.
now I'm really happy I don't have to see that stuff.
Yeah, but I will tell you, 90% of all advertisements coming my way are about weight loss, lose your belly fat,
Oh, that's
why your hormones are out of whack.
Yeah, okay.
And it's kind of depressing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, man, can I just see an advertisement for an ice cream bar, because I don't want to be reminded about my belly
You need
fat.
to buy more ice cream bars. It sounds to me.
Well, now watch what pops up after we broadcast this.
Exactly.
Anyway, there is definitely some statistical truths to age demographics, gender, things that people would typically buy in a span of years based on their composition, etc. And I get it, that the advertisers know who their target audience is. Putting, lose your belly fat ads in front of you, you're probably not going to buy anything. Me, I might get distracted by it and start looking at myself and going, oh, well, maybe they know something that I need to take care of, right? So, yes, to your point, the algorithms can be, positive or negative. I think it's maintaining that stance of curiosity of, is this something I actually need to explore, or am I being exploited based on data that they seem to have about who I am and the stage in life in which I'm in?
There's a comedian that does a great series when we started doing algorithms and when people started getting our personal information and using it for our good or otherwise. It's about a guy who calls a pizza store. And the pizza people, the automated voice comes on and says, "Hi, do you want your same order again?" And the guy says, "Yeah, but double this or that." And then the voice comes back and says, "Do you really think you should be doing that? I saw your last cholesterol scores, and I don't think you right." And so and it's like So at what point is privacy part of this too? And and I used to think. I really used to think, who cares? I'm an old grandpa now, and I don't do anything bad anymore, so I don't care who knows what I do and where I'm going. That if that helps me get better advertising or whatever, that's great. But now you see things happening in China with these things called social scores, and you see these 15-minute cities being proposed in like Edinburgh in the UK, where we are tracking your movements, and if you move too much or you have not done this or that properly, then you can't do this. Or if you, I mean, I'm making this up. If you own an SUV, you can only go so far. And so, boy, I'm not for that.
Right, absolutely.
Right? And so at what point does it become harmless fun into, wait a minute, no, that's a little too Big Brother. That's a little too 1984. I heard recently that you can't read 1984 in high school anymore. Is that true?
Oh, I don't know.
See, now that would be something else I'd be afraid of, is if we're trying to say, wait a minute, the people who want us to think in certain ways are now afraid to let us read about things, about thinking certain ways, right? Because that would be scary to me. If our government or our listening devices or our or big tech or big companies started forcing me to do certain things or think certain ways, that's pretty scary. And there's a lot of folks who believe that that's happening right now.
You're joking about the calling the pizza chain and the automation suggesting that maybe you shouldn't do that based on your cholesterol reading, but I don't know that that's so far beyond the realm of possibility that we can't consider how some of our private medical information could at some point be interfused with our purchasing power. And so what if I do have very high blood sugar and I want to go buy an ice cream bar and use a credit card, and all of these things become connected in the digital sphere, and I'm denied a purchase because my blood sugar is too high? Is that something I want because it's for my health benefit, or does that become extreme overreach? That's going to be a slippery slope if that starts to happen.
Yeah, I'm trying to not be judgmental here. I'm trying to ask a curious question, but is that something that people in general would consider? And I'm not even sure if people in general matters. Are we so? Are we swinging the other way? We used to be very individualistic as a country, and we used to think, no, nobody makes my decisions for me. Are we swinging so far the other way now? I remember there was a mayor in New York 5-6 years ago, I think, that banned
the sodas.
big gulps.
Yep, the
right?
supersized sodas,
saying that that's a detriment to our health. And while I personally believe that, and I don't drink sodas for that reason, and our family decided as a family when my kids were teenagers that we wouldn't have sodas in the house. But that was a family, a personal decision.
Right.
Your decision to go drink sodas is your decision, and I'm not going to be the one to say you can't do that. And so, but our medical information is out there now since the pandemic. I now have to carry a vaccination record when I go and travel. You know how much my wife and I travel. It still is pertinent in certain getting in and out of certain countries, and so now we are starting to use that. I had a niece that I just visited in Nashville recently, who just is going through the vaccination process with their new baby, and I can tell you that when I was getting vaccinations with my kids, this was many decades ago, we didn't think about it. We just took our kids to the doctor and they gave them the standard vaccinations. Well, guess what? The standard vaccinations these days include things like hepatitis and COVID and some other things. And she just kind of realized when they said, well, we're going to bring you. It's time for your vaccinations. Here's your appointment. And it was just before the appointment, I think. She got a list of the vaccinations that she was going to be given. And first of all, she was going, all this at once? My baby's only this big.
Yeah.
And they're going to put all this stuff in. And then she started looking at them. She goes, what does my baby need hepatitis for? Well, we have babies these days that come from, parents who use drugs and da 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 da. It's like, I don't use drugs. I don't need hepatitis for my baby. And anyway, I'm not even going to get into the COVID thing. So it's like, she started saying no, 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 no. And then she says, now wait a minute, which ones of these are going to be required by school? So it started making me think we're already in an age where government is telling us what we should and should not have. Now, in the past, when it was measles and polio and things like that, smallpox, I mean, I was all for,
Sure.
Look, for the good of the world, I'm doing this and this and this. But then at what point does government or whoever body, who is the people that does vaccinations? Is it the school board?
Makes the determination about what you're required to have?
Yeah.
Good question.
Well, I'm not sure I want to know the answer. Right?
I would imagine it's the state education department per state, is my guess.
Are they making the best decisions for my interests?
I don't know, Gary, are they?
I'm not sure they are anymore. So this is the thing I think we now have to start thinking about. I mean, we started out talking about algorithms and privacy, but who's making the decisions for our lives these days? And at what point do we care about general decisions versus specific individual decisions?
Yeah.
And are we asking those questions?
Well, and I think I would take it a step further, based on the opening discussion about your grandson and his willingness or his even desire to go into this field. Have we just become so, maybe lazy is too strong a word, but have we become so inundated with stuff to do, information, boxes to check, legal forms to read, that we just don't care anymore, and we've kind of signed away our rights? And have we entered into an era where we don't have anyone advocating for our best choices because we just don't feel like we can sit there and look through all of the fine print, and so we're just hoping somebody else makes a wise decision on our behalf?
I think that's exactly true. I'll freely admit that I have never read the fine print on an app when I've downloaded it.
Certainly.
And there are privacy statements in there I'm sure that I probably wouldn't like if I read them. But I want the app and I'm going to download it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to take the time to do that. To your point, I don't have the time to, I don't choose to make the time to read through all that. Now, I'm the kind of person who never looked through the escrow papers when I bought a house either. So, I'm not your best example.
Right.
But
You inherited a ghost in your attic? Congratulations.
I will tell you, though, that I surround myself with a lot of people. You and I both have a mutual friend who I call every time I'm making certain electronics, gadget things, because I know that person does all the research.
Right.
So I'm hoping that there's people in my life that are doing that research that will say, by the way, don't download this app because they do this or whatever. But I'm not sure.
Well, so maybe some of the questions that we can leave folks with for this particular episode is, do you have some trusted individuals in your life that you could have this conversation with to talk about, I am a little bit concerned, or I now have a heightened awareness of some of my personal information being out there, what it's being used for. What do I do? What are some entry-level steps that I can do to kind of rein some of this back in? And then maybe another question is, have I become a little bit flippant about my personal information and who it's going out to? And what are some of those things that I need to be aware of? Because I don't feel at peace about everyone knowing all of my details all across the board. And while we're thankful for the algorithm that led our new UK friend to stumble into this in this case, the YouTube channel. And we're thankful for anybody who gets a chance to hear this narrative as a result of an algorithm. We certainly have had lots of conversation in the last, 25 minutes that have given us some pause about just how far and wide our personal information is going.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, do we care? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? And do we care? And at what point do we care enough to do something about it?
That's always the question, right? Well, we would love to hear your feedback, so please do shoot us a message. If you go to the website curiositynotjudgment.com, you can find a contact us section there. And then, of course, on YouTube or some of the other podcast platforms, you've got opportunity to leave a comment, so we'd love to hear from you. And thanks to those of you that have taken the time to do that already.
All right, take care.
Have a great one.